There's a lot of new people. There's a lot of newcomers in this community. Now, what that means is you probably don't know the full extent of my political ideology. You probably don't know the full extent of my politics. And Jordan Peterson is the kind of dude who has been able to so successfully hide himself as a liberal. Now, Jordan Peterson is not a liberal. I don't give a shit how much you try to say he's a liberal. You go to a Turning Point USA conference and you speak as a conservative speaker at the Turning Point USA conference alongside the likes of Tucker Carlson and numerous other people, then you're not a liberal. You are literally a conservative. But a lot of people are new to politics, or they feel like Jordan Peterson maybe helped them, because Jordan Peterson does do regular self-help. Self-help is a grift overall, but oftentimes targeting the most vulnerable people, ripe for exploitation. And Jordan Peterson certainly filled that void for a lot of kids. Yeah, Jordan Peterson is a wonderful way to get young, disillusioned incels and libs into the right-wing pipeline. Absolutely. Yeah, I'm confused. Everything I've seen from JBP has been positive and really helped me, and I'm a female. All right, well, I think your mind is going to be changed by the end of this session. He is a clown, a grifter, and just a regular old conservative who really, and I mean really, capitalized on the "I'm just a centrist. Of course I'm not a conservative. I'm just simply stating how far is too far for the radical left. These postmodernist neo-Marxists." Probably my best impression as well, by the way, is Jordan Peterson. Jordan Peterson is, of course, now making a comeback. Apparently, he has a new book that's going to come out. Maybe he'll add another 12 to the 12 rules that he originally came out with. Maybe he'll make it 24 rules. Who knows? Too many rules. Rules that he, of course, does not follow on his own, which is ironic because one of the rules is literally, clean your own home before you cast a stone elsewhere, before you focus on others' houses. Rugged individualism is a cancerous mentality, as you all already are very well aware of. Part of the reason why so many hogs don't want to wear a fucking mask. That kind of rugged, individualistic, conservative mentality was absolutely at the heart of Jordan Peterson's ideology. So let's take a look.
Making people bake a cake for a gay wedding.
Making them do it?
Yeah.
I don't think that's a very good idea.
But here's the argument. So should they be able to deny making a cake for a black couple if they don't like black people?
Allowed to? Probably. That doesn't mean it's right.
Okay, so then we had the civil rights movement where they said black people, you had to serve them in your restaurants and stuff like that. And it did work and it did make our society better. But would you argue that that still wasn't right?
Join the stream
no,
for
that
the
was right.
with State for the big
why is that different to now if you didn't want to make a cake for black people?
Maybe it's not. Maybe it's not different.
Brilliant, man. I mean, so brilliant that he got rolled by Jim fucking Jeffries. Here's Jordan Peterson contemplating whether or not to oppress the gays.
77 votes. Australia is holding a plebiscite on whether to legalize gay marriage. I'm against the Yes campaign, but only because it's backed by cultural Marxists. I'm curious to hear your views on gay marriage. Well, I would be against it too if it was backed by cultural Marxists, because it isn't clear to me that it will satisfy the ever-increasing, what would you call it, demand for an assault on traditional modes of being.
Yeah. How is that any different than Republicans literally just being like, no, brother, I don't think marriage should be between a man and a woman. It's Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve. No, the only difference is he's an intellectual. He has draped himself with the robes of academia. So you fool, you pleb, you simpleton, you do not understand. You lack the brain processing power. Jordan Peterson makes you feel good because he's agreeing with you, but he's agreeing with you in the way that an intellectual at a college campus would say, offering you all of the confirmation biases that you want, all of your preconceived biases that you have from years and years of social conditioning around conservative culture. He's telling you that it's all right to feel this way because I am an academic. Jordan Peterson is asked about same-sex adoption and he responds, let's see what he has to say about that.
I think the devil's in the details, to tell you the truth. If I was ever talking to any individuals about that, the question is, well, how would you raise them? I mean, you have problems, right? If you're both of the same sex, then you're going to have the problem of how to provide the proper model for...
False. Absolutely zero evidence to this. As a matter of fact, all evidence on this issue points to the exact opposite of what Jordan Peterson is saying currently. As long as there are two parents, there is literally no statistical difference in the child's upbringing. Totally made up. It is a completely made up, nonsensical position, only backed by your biases. The only reason why Jordan Peterson can get away with this shit is because you want to believe it because it kind of makes sense. It's like common sense, right?
We know this is indisputable, and this is something I've talked to Warren Farrell about. Kids in intact heterosexual families where the father is present do way better on multiple indices than kids who are part of single-parent families.
The fucking bullshit. Again, notice how he hid the truth? The argument isn't about single-parent versus two-parent households. The argument is about two-parent households where parents are gay. The argument is not about whether two-parent households are the same as like single-parent households. Of course, there are other complications with single-parent households. You son of a bitch. He is fucking doing that. The data does not single out heterosexual two-parent households. That's bullshit.
Now, that doesn't mean that there are no single parents who do a good job, right? That's not the same bloody claim. Those are different claims. But on average, not only do kids where fathers are present do better, but societies or even local societies where there are more fathers present do better, not only for the kids that they're fathering, but the kids in the neighborhood where there are lots of intact families with fathers do better. And so I believe...
Notice how he did not mention gay parents at all. The question is gay parent adoption. He did not talk about that. He immediately went into talking about the difference between two parents versus one parent. What? Are gay parents always single parents? Is that what you're fucking saying? You are a gross person for saying that. That is the same shit that Ben Shapiro does all the fucking time. This is not an argument. You're not making an argument about the question. Disgusting that Jordan Peterson does this shit. Jordan Peterson unfolds his deranged theory of inceldom, whereby Chads get all the women in this horrific society. So that has to be changed. Joe Rogan points out this contradicts his rage whining about equality of outcome being Stalinism, and Peterson is literally
that
stunned.
Is what happened.
Yeah, when you get owned by my man, when you get owned by this guy, you know you fucked up.
Is that a small minority of men have all the sexual opportunity. A fairly large minority of men don't. The women are unhappy because they can't find a committed relationship. It's bad for most of the men. And the men who have all the sexual opportunity get cynical.
But isn't this in some ways against your whole idea of equality of outcome? Because you're talking about equality.
My man applies the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule, to the sexual marketplace. And he literally wants to equalize the playing field for men by hitting traditionalist values. This is why he was so good with incels, because this is literally what incels believe. Like, incels want to go back to traditional values because they think that they'll have a better opportunity to fuck women, if that's the case. If their parents are forcing them into these traditional patriarchal bonds that people were subjected to in the past.
Quality of sexual outcome now. If these men, if you
that's
have a
the
guy
point. That's
like
the
a
point
LeBron James that's a dominant basketball player that just kicks everyone's ass, this is a guy who succeeded at the highest level, right? Well, there's going to be people like that sexually. There's going to be people that are better at finding mates, and this is what they enjoy.
It's actually what does happen.
But what is wrong with that?
Well, what's wrong with it is that it destabilizes society and it's bad for children.
Like, you destabilize society if I can't get my dick wet. Now, you have officially not only said that the solution to inceldom is like traditional enforcement of traditional societal rules, rigorous patriarchal gender constructs, but then also on top of that, he's justifying these whiny fucking babies who are constantly crying about not getting pussy. He's saying that if that doesn't happen, you're destabilizing society. Bullshit, motherfucker. Bullshit. He's just using, again, the patina of intellectualism on regular old internet fucking forum incel nonsense. It's so hard to disconnect from JP because he really helped me get out of the depressions of my youth, but I've kind of had notions of what you've pointed out for a while, and you're right. It's because he served you slop, brother. Self-help can have the capacity to be really helpful for a lot of people. I've talked about this before. Self-help can help you get through depressive bouts. It can help you get through, significant problems, even addiction for that matter, something that Jordan Peterson himself has been afflicted with, as we know. But the reality is, he was selling you a conservative, like a regular fucking conservative ideology, along with the very commonplace self-help arguments that he has ripped from every other fucking self-help guru that came before him. I talk about cleaning your room and how important it is to like build small steps, build small goals, build short-term goals and long-term goals, and then make sure your short-term goals are achievable. So you get a boost of fucking adrenaline and endorphins when you actually, make your bed when it's so difficult to get out of bed in the morning. Like, I know that's actually good advice. The difference is I don't then turn around and say, society is not built against you. Capitalism is good. Climate change is fake. It's a falsehood. It's a fabrication. That's what Jordan Peterson did, though. And that no one should be compelled to bake cakes for homosexuals, and that gay couples should not be able to adopt, or at least straight couples should be able to adopt before gay couples. It's totally just awful shit. Most people, unfortunately, are so conditioned with laser precision on the aesthetics that they fail to recognize when someone is being a monster with their worldview, with their opinion. The funniest part about Jordan Peterson's grift, of course, is that his big thing is the trans stuff, which I have an entire video on. We'll watch that after. He is a transphobe. Like, make no mistake. When people say Jordan Peterson's not a transphobe, it's bullshit. Like, he does not believe trans women are women. He lies and says that, it's just, I can't be compelled. I mean, he lied so significantly about C-16 that, like, there are probably people in my audience that still think that this was a serious act against freedom of speech in Canada or something. Like, total nonsense. And he's also openly admitted, like, he does not believe that a trans woman is a woman. Like, he has said that.
Now, I don't know what that means. What do you mean a real woman?
Well, I'm asking you, in your mind, it depends what you think a real woman is, but do you think a trans woman is a woman?
No.
This is great. I love this one. This one's really funny, too.
Do I have a favorite feminist? I don't think of things that way. I'm not a favorite of ideologues. Do I have a favorite admirable woman?
Yeah, he hates ideology. It's like, dude, this notion that you hate ideology, that you are like anti-ideology, as you espouse every fucking facet of liberal capitalism, is so hilarious. Like, just say you like a fucking feminist. Like, how hard is that? He thinks that feminism is like a pure ideology and therefore bad. It's like saying, who's your favorite fucking civil rights figure? Oh, I don't believe in it. It's an ideology. I don't believe in that. Ask me who my favorite black man is, and I might tell you. It's like, you're an ideologue.
I'm sorry. I often have a difficult time bringing names to mind. The woman who established nursing as a profession in Britain.
Florence Nightingale.
Yes. Florence Nightingale. It's like...
Now, there's a reason why he came up with that one, and you will find out just now.
Good for Florence.
She thought at one point, I think men were unsuited to nursing because she had gender stereotypes. Shouldn't we be telling her off?
Well, some men are unsuited to nursing and some aren't.
What does that even mean, dude? You are doing the same he does? In what respect do you mean? I tell you self-help is grifters. And every time I give you advice on anything, I tell you this is from my own personal experience, and everyone has a different, unique experience. But most importantly, if you are to say that I am similar to Jordan Peterson, I mean, I can take that as a compliment. He is incredibly successful at his grift. My grift is about getting you to recognize the shitty hand that you've been dealt. My grift is doing agitative propaganda so that you understand the current conditions that we exist under. If you consider that to be a grift, especially when I'm very open and very honest about it, then yeah, I guess I am a grifter. I'm a grifter for leftist values that I truly believe in. I've been on the anti-Jordan Peterson train since the jump. Since the first moment I heard him speak, I was like, oh, this guy sucks. Like, he is so clearly doing Deepak Chopra shit for all the incels in the world, all the aggrieved white folk that truly are oppressed, by the way, of course. Not on the virtue of being white or male, but, they feel the same economic anxieties that we all feel. The lack of opportunity, the feeling of senselessness, the feeling of alienation. These are things that we all experience, except not because you're a fucking white man, but because you are still a worker ultimately, and also are subjected to the same capitalist fetishization of commodities that are ultimately meaningless and don't provide you any sort of guidance or perspective or any sort of fulfillment. It's like eating snacks. It's like eating junk food. And obviously there are so many different issues, but according to Jordan Peterson, like around his worldview, it's like just conservatism will fix everything. Jordan Peterson also believes Frozen, the children's movie, is cultural Marxist propaganda. Now, I have a famous video where I talked to someone in my community with 3 arrows, actually, about how Jordan Peterson is a grifter, and he like really in a very dangerous way engages in stuff that I would say is borderline Nazi propaganda. That's an entirely different ahistorical part of his process that we will get to as well. And that person literally changed their minds after talking to us for 45 minutes. And I think that's been a very helpful video for some other people as well. There was supposed to be a part 2. We never even got to it because he actually changed his mind after the part 1. But not only that, but the reason why I'm mentioning this is because cultural Marxism is a dog whistle. It is actually the origination of cultural Marxism comes from cultural Bolshevism, which is what Nazis said the Jews were doing in the Frankfurt School, which Jordan Peterson literally alludes to. Now, this is the normalized American conservatism version of it, where they will say like colleges are wrought with cultural Marxist propaganda created by Jews that want to destroy Western civilization. This is exactly what the Nazis did. This is exactly how the Nazis propagandized against the Jews and said that they were terrible. Basically, that's what Jordan Peterson is doing, just a modernized version of this. Yeah, cultural Marxism is just the modernized version of Judeo-Bolshevism or cultural Bolshevism. Everything leftist is created by Jews that have taken over our media and taken over our the halls of intelligentsia to brainwash people into believing in non-traditionalist values that will destroy the Western world. That's basically what they believe, or Nazis believed, and that's basically how this is turned into this exact same thing, this exact same like cultural Marxism bullshit.
In one of your lectures, you said the film Frozen was garbage. I don't think I said garbage. I think I said reprehensible propaganda, which I believe.
Frozen is reprehensible propaganda.
Can you elaborate on your thoughts on the film? I can't because I haven't seen it recently enough to. The only thing I can say is that I left the film with the strong sense that it was produced for ideological reasons, and it was produced as a sort of anti-Sleeping Beauty, and I felt that was entirely inappropriate because it wasn't a genuine artistic attempt.
Isn't Sleeping Beauty also propaganda by that same logic? Then it's like patriarchal expressions. So you're basically just saying like you like that other propaganda because it corresponds to your worldview, whereas Frozen is cultural Marxist propaganda. Because it shows like, I guess I never watched Frozen, but I assume it's because it's like a girl power Disney princess, right? Isn't that what it is? Here, Jordan Peterson claims that he has undeniable evidence for the existence of God.
We have no way of confirming that this something mystical or supernatural actually happened. What this is about the language.
Stops people from smoking.
Well, you can stop smoking without any sort of supernatural intervention.
No, not really.
You can't stop smoking without supernatural?
There aren't really any.
This is God, you simpleton. What you simply fail to recognize is the metaphysical value that a Nicorette gum has. God is the reason why Nicorette exists. Jordan Peterson is like a fucking Saxon king. Like that's the level of zealotry he demonstrates so frequently. And then he has to back up. He has to back away from that whenever he's pushed back on it. So he'll go into, again, a very postmodernist, ironically postmodernist depiction of like how metaphysical expressions of things that were depicted in the Bible exist in nature. Ask Jordan Peterson whether he believes in God, and he will give the most vague, incomprehensible bullshit answer that would make even the most obscure postmodernist seem lucid by comparison. This is exactly what I was talking about. I'm so glad she added this in here too. This is my favorite. I gotta
so
go
people
pee.
often ask me, do you believe in God?
I love this one.
I don't like that question. First of all, it's an attempt to box me in a sense. And the reason that it's an attempt to box me in is because the question is asked so that I can be firmly placed on one side of a binary argument. And the reason I don't like to answer it is because A, I don't like to be boxed in, and B, because I don't know what the person means by believe or God. And they think they know. And the probability that they construe belief and construe God the same way I do is virtually zero. So it's a question that doesn't work for me on multiple levels of analysis. But strangely enough, just as we were talking, the answer to that question popped into my head. I act as if God exists. Now, you can decide for yourself whether that means that I believe in him, so to speak. But I act as if he exists. So that's a good enough answer for that.
These are all snippets from a 2-minute clip from a one-sided take. Look at the interview that made him famous with a feminist news anchor, please. I don't agree with Peterson on so many levels, but this is one-sided. Absolute delusion, my friend. I will do this to you. You're taking me out of context right now. because you probably just joined,
Hey,
we've been
Hasan,
looking
do you
at
like
Jordan
our
Peterson's
pasta?
entire
I don't mean
fucking
to the
career
non-binary, just
of
wondering if you
psychotic
like carbonara
screeds and
pasta.
takes. So if you would want to see me in context, you can check the YouTube video out that will come out on this. He's like, fair enough, I just got here. Exactly. Just stick around, okay? Your mind will be changed. He basically only criticizes conservativeness and his certain political views. Doesn't it make sense to only pick up the beneficial ideas about the self-development and completely ignore his political and religious ideas? No, because his political ideas guide his self-help. He doesn't just tell you to, like, try to uplift yourself, which, by the way, even that alone, if you talk about as objective fact, is really dangerous for the most part, because I think to each their own. Everybody has like a different worldview, or everyone has a different pathway to success or progress. He doesn't just do that. He also weaponizes all of his worldview against progressive ideas. Improving yourself is dangerous. I never said that. I mean, you're a gray name, so you're definitely wrong here on this end. Improving yourself is the key. Like, it's something that I believe in more than anything else. I talk about it literally all the time. I am obsessively advocating for progress and progressing yourself and making yourself better than you were yesterday. I also don't think that Jordan Peterson just tells you to improve yourself. He tells incels that their worldview is correct, that we should go back to traditionalist values so that you can fucking find a girlfriend, and the agitation, the anger that you feel every day about not being able to get laid is actually a societal problem, and it's because women have sexual liberty, and we need to fucking scale that back dramatically so that society doesn't collapse. Whenever Jordan Peterson is around women, he has to remove 90% of himself because they can't handle the truth. Oh, this one's really good too. This is the old one.
If I'm in a mixed gender discussion group, I have to basically remove about 90% of myself.
I think the funniest part about Jordan Peterson is that, like, if I said the things that he says and not use the language that he uses, you'd be like, oh, you're a fucking conservative, a dude bro. Like, you're a conservative mega dude bro. You're kind of an incel. You're kind of creepy. You're a conservative dude bro. But Jordan Peterson slaps the halls of intelligentsia coat of paint over what he's saying. So all the dude bros that are like misogynist, or are all the dude bros that are also have these conservative worldviews, are like, oh yeah, it makes me feel better about myself that a smart guy is saying the exact same things that I think. It's nice. Oh, it must be facts and logic.
Because if I was who I am, the discussion wouldn't even get off the ground. I have to rein myself in and be so polite with the women I've worked with. Politeness trumps truth.
Politeness trumps truth.
Jesus Christ. This is really funny.
I think it's...
So Jordan Peterson, and that's Jack Posobiec, by the way, Pizzagate guy, is at the Turning Point USA conference, which he attended and was a speaker at. Liberal, by the way.
It's partly also a consequence of the fact that we haven't adapted to the birth control pill yet. You know, it was a major technological revolution, the birth control pill, and it's only been 50 years. And we haven't figured out what it means for women to have control over the reproductive function, or what the consequences what the consequences of that should be socially. The leftist types, especially in the 60s, thought you could just blow sexual morality apart completely, because now people were free to do what they want. But that isn't working. There's a backlash against that on the left as well.
Yes, birth control and scientific achievements that have offered women more freedom. That's actually bad. It's blowing society apart because women get to, have a bodily autonomy. Thank you, Jordan Peterson. I took his grad course at U of T. The man would just ramble on and on for 3 hours and literally go in circles. My colleagues thought he was a genius, but I never thought he actually got anywhere with the points he was making. One thing I remember vividly was how often he was late to lectures. We're talking about 10 minutes. Found it ironic considering it was always talk about getting one's house in order. Yeah. Did you give an explanation of postmodernism? All definitions are all really vague and don't make sense. Exactly. That's postmodernism.
Because we don't know.
Okay, so this is the famous Jordan Peterson clip. Now we're getting to the famous stuff that, like, is really going to trigger some folks, because this is one of those areas where, like, it totally corresponds to your worldview. It sounds right because it's common sense, okay? It sounds common sense to you if you have a personal bias around the way women operate and the way women behave in the workplace or whatever. Let's take a look.
Here's a question. Can men and women work together in the workplace?
Yes, I do it.
How do you know?
Because I work with a lot of women.
Right. Well, it's been happening for, 40 years? And things are deteriorating very rapidly at the moment in terms of the relationships between men and women. Is there sexual harassment in the workplace? Yes. Should it stop? That'd be good. Will it? Well, not at the moment it won't, because we don't know what the rules are.
Do you think men and women can work in the workplace together?
I don't know.
Without sexual harassment?
We'll see.
We'll see. How many years will it take for men and women working in the workplace together?
More than 40.
To get a sense.
We don't know what the rules are. Like what? Here's a rule. How about no makeup in the workplace?
Why would that be a rule?
Why should you wear makeup in the workplace? Isn't that sexually provocative?
No.
No, you fucking animal. It's like saying, how about no fucking shoulder pads? How about no shaving? You no longer get to shave. Your clean shaven look makes me horny. You need to fucking grow the beard out.
No.
It's not?
No.
Well, what is it then? What's the purpose of makeup?
Some people would like to just put on makeup.
Why?
I don't know why.
Why do you make your lips red? Because they turn red during sexual arousal. That's why. Why do you put rouge on your cheeks? Same reason.
I mean, look.
How about high heels?
Like, he really thought he was owning him here. And so many people watched this video and were like, yeah, fuck yeah, he's right. First of all, this is the dance that Jordan Peterson is making around they were asking for it. The real problem here is sexual harassment in the workplace. It's not like women are inviting sexual harassment when they put makeup on, you fucking psychopath. Secondly, women don't just put makeup on. Like, if Jordan Peterson had talked to a single woman that's not a complete psycho, they would tell Jordan that women don't put fucking makeup on just to make themselves desirable to other men. It can be for more confidence. It's like no different than wearing clothing that makes you feel better. It's so silly. It's so stupid. Some women don't want to put makeup on, but are forced to put makeup on because if you don't put makeup on, everyone's like, well, what are you, tired? You good? You look like shit today. It's no different than wearing a suit, you dumb fuck. But of course, in his mind, it's like, no, women are harlots. They are trying. They're doing the dragon of chaos. They're making my pee-pee feel ways in which I think it's sinful. I cannot control myself when I see a woman wearing rose-colored lips. I see rouge and I come. My cummies. Here, the flip side of this is literally, you put hair gel in your hair, Jordan Peterson? Nothing, and I mean nothing, gets me harder than seeing a man with hair gel. I want to rape you now, and it's justifiable. You were asking for it. That's basically what Jordan Peterson is saying here. And he's saying that the only way to fix this imbalance, the only way to fix this problem is by purging women from the workplace. And he's too much of a pussy to say it out loud, so he'll just dangle that in front of you. Are you telling me that people actually found this base or some shit? I'm literally 16. This video made 0 sense. Holy shit. Yeah, some people did. This was at a time when like the Gamergate, like post Gamergate world was like, it was just really good. The market was like, everyone fucking hated me on the internet back then. It was great. He's a hypocrite talking about women dressing too sexy while he himself has no shoes on and wiggling his sexy little toes around. Let those puppers breathe, Jordan.
What about high heels? What about them? They're there to exaggerate sexual attractiveness. That's what high heels do. Now, I'm not saying that people shouldn't use sexual displays in the workplace. I'm not saying that.
But I am saying that that is what they're doing. And that is what they're doing.
Do you feel like a serious woman who does not want sexual harassment in the workplace, do you feel like if she wears makeup in the workplace that she is somewhat being critical?
Yeah.
So can someone describe to me what this would be like in context? No, you can't. But all you know is fucking out of context. I mean, he's giving the context as to why he's saying things. Like if I just kept it at women that wear makeup are harlots that are doing it so that they can get sexually harassed, then that's out of context. But he also literally is giving direct answers to direct questions. It's the one argument that people have. This was literally a cup of advice to make him look bad. Yeah, totally, dude. Here's what the reality is. Okay, you find this to be out of context. Do you know why? To make him look bad, right? You said that. You admitted that. Because that is a bad and idiotic fucking point of view. And you understand that that's a bad point of view. And you don't want to admit that that's Jordan Peterson's worldview. You don't want to admit that that's your worldview. You recognize that that's bad. And you desperately want to intellectualize your bad and often dumb and outdated point of view. That's it. That's why you recognize that it's bad, and that's why you're saying it's out of context. When it's not out of context, it's in context. Jordan Peterson has talked routinely about how women and men cannot cohabitate, cannot coexist in the workplace. He uses outdated fucking Nordic studies and shit to be like, look, in Switzerland, women are committing suicide because they have so much sexual freedom. Like, he tries to paint this worldview that is inherently conservative, that inherently wants you to go back to fucking traditionalist values because it's nature. It's the man's nature to go back to these traditionalist points of view. And that's wrong. Or is it Switzerland? I thought it was Norway. Did I say Switzerland? Whatever, shut up. The point I'm trying to make is you recognize that he's not apolitical. You recognize that he's saying a lot of stuff that you believe. But the issue is you kind of figure out that, like, yeah, he's not really doing a good job defending the positions. He defends those positions well when he's having a conversation with you. When he's just telling you how the world is. That shouldn't stop you from trying to figure out the context on your own. The core contradiction underlying Jordan Peterson's rage-whining SJW cultural Marxists, they're coddle snowflakes afraid to offend anyone, but also evil Satanists out to destroy Western civilization.
Question about it. I mean, there's all these people in the U.S. who are on the conservative side who are aligned with Trump for all sorts of reasons, and there's all this tension around his presidency and attempt.
Remember, he's doing this like after Donald Trump is president. Like, a part of the thing that exposed the conservative grift for what it was on the internet, I think for a lot of people, was the recognition that, like, Republicans owned literally every part of the government. And they were running train on, like, American institutions. And yet these guys were still like, well, you know, it's still the blue-haired SJW that's a problem. They're leading the country. It's like, no, they weren't. It was very clear that they weren't. And it was a demonstrable failure. Like, you could see that that was a fucking lie. And that's why a lot of people were like, wait a minute, my life still fucking sucks ass. Maybe it wasn't a blue-haired lesbian SJW college freshman that is the beacon of all of my problems. That's the reason why I fucking feel the way I do. I feel anxiety. Maybe it has a larger, more significant, more systemic issues that I am experiencing, more systemic forms of repression, like capitalism. Like the fact that, you know, my parents were fucking morons in comparison to me, but they were able to purchase a house and get a good job. Even if they didn't go to college, they were like set for the rest of their lives. And I don't have that security. That has nothing to do with lesbian non-binary SJWs in college campuses and everything to do with those who fucking control our system. And I'm not saying that about my mom. My mom is way smarter than me. All right, let's keep going with this one.
Watching how this conversations go in the U.S. And I have one question about it. I mean, there's all these people in the U.S. who are on the conservative side who are aligned with Trump for all sorts of reasons. And there's all this tension around his presidency and attempts to pull him out of his office for various reasons. And like, what do you think will happen if that comes to pass? What do you think will happen to these people that have identified with Trump? And like, how is it that Democratic types, for example, are holding out their hand to say to these conservative types, sort of like, welcome back into the fold? Because it looks to me, from an outsider's perspective, that your country is polarizing in a way that's not good, and that, you know, people are going after Trump. And I understand that. It's not like I don't understand that. But there's all these people that elected him and that are identified with him, and they're not taking this well, you know. And so, well, they're not. It's not. And, you know, you might not think they're very bright and all of that, and you know, they're backwards and all of those things. But you know, you need to have respect for the rest of your citizens, and if your country isn't going to pull itself apart.
Yeah, you need to respect those who clearly demonstrate that they do not have respect for you. What you must do when someone tells you that you are not human, when someone tells you that because you are black, you are inherently violent, and police need to come to your communities and knock on your doors and kill your children. Well, obviously what you must do is respect their difference in opinion. Hey, shut the fuck up, bitch.
And I really see this happening from an outsider's perspective when I come down here. And I lived in the States for a while, and it wasn't like this before.
I'm confused about how this dovetails with your thesis that the left is too preoccupied with being non-confrontational. Right?
The left is too preoccupied
just that
with
we are.
That's interesting.
Okay,
Yeah,
all right.
No, that's a good question.
The idea that liberals, especially intellectuals, are preoccupied with politically correct speech, that they're not.
I see.
And yet.
No, they're too preoccupied with identity politics by a large margin, and they tend to categorize everyone by their ethnicity and their sex and their gender. And I think all that does is turn people into tribal actors, and that the end result of that is.
Again, this is, and I'm going to use a gamer analogy here so you understand it. You know how gamers say, oh, this game is political because there's woman with no titty in my vidya, woman with small titty in my vidya, that's political. Woman with big titty in my vidya, that's not political. Like, even if it's fucking Call of Duty. That's because the default skin is the white dude. That's why, okay? Default skin is the white guy. So when Jordan Peterson says, like, oh, like, all these things are further dividing us, we must return to monkey. Like, he's basically just saying, like, we must return to a time when, like, we didn't think about these sorts of different categorizations because it was just the norm that, you know, guys that look like me were just running shit and no one fucking questioned it. That's it. And this is, by the way, him, like, trying to monitor himself, as demonstrated, as someone also pointed in the chat. He's holding back 90% of his power. You know why he's holding back 90% of his power? Because there's women around. I'm censorious. I'm censoring myself. I'm 90% more apprehensive.
But weren't you also saying, though, that the left is...
I'm trying so hard not to sexually assault you right now, madam, because you're wearing makeup on. You have rouge. And not just you. Bill Maher's looking like a fucking snack, too. He could catch this dick any day. Look at all the makeup he has on.
Weren't you also saying, though, that the left is too worried about offending people?
I think that goes along with...
I will.
Yes,
Right.
yes. Well, that goes...
But then on the other hand, when the left, for example, offends people in the political sphere, you're questioning whether that's somehow bad for society writ large.
Well, I'm concerned about... I think that the...
Milady, now I definitely believe women and men cannot coexist. You're doing the same shit he's doing by using his voice, moving his audience to a negative view on his opponent. Yeah, his opinions are bad. So if you recognize that if you're developing a bad fifi about him, that means it's working. That means you are finally recognizing that the guy who's been like feeding you this shit has been programming you to believe these conservative, inherently conservative points of view. That's not a bad thing. Just welcome the change, brother, okay? This notion that, like, you're doing the same thing he's doing is so fucking silly. I have an inherently different worldview than he does. Like, it is not the own that you think it is. His worldview, at least how I feel about his worldview, is that it's outdated, it's antiquated, and when people follow it all the way through, I think it's bad.
Women's liberation has led to our weakened ability to pair bond, the breakdown of the institution of marriage, and sexual inequity in favor of alpha men. I guess probably I would say that to the degree that all of that is true, I wouldn't say that the women's liberation movement is what's done it, because I don't believe that the women's liberation movement is the primary driver of women's liberation. In fact, I think it's a secondary consequence of a far more radical biological revolution, and that's the invention of the birth control pill. Right? Because the birth control...
Hey, this is out of context too, right? Because the previous one with the TPUSA, that was out of context.
The pill essentially allowed females for the first time in evolutionary history to gain voluntary control over their reproductive function. And a tremendous amount of political upheaval followed in the aftermath of that. And, you know, people who are engaged in that political upheaval like to think about it as causal, because they like to think that their efforts, say, on agitating...
Yeah, there was no women's liberation before chemical contraception. By the way, a brilliant take. An absolutely brilliant take. Before the birth control pill, there was no woman's liberation. Females used to be shopping. They didn't want to go out and vote or anything. Women be shopping is what they did. And they were happy. My man can't read theory, but literally wrote the Incel Manifesto, dude.
In favor of women's equal rights. It was actually the causal factor that produced the sociological transformation, but I think the evidence for that is extraordinarily weak given the unbelievable magnitude of the birth control pill. So, with the birth control pill, women become more like men, much more like men. And also, it seems to be the case that women on the birth control pill don't like masculine men as much. There's studies showing that, for example, if you show women the face of the same man at different, or the same men at different phases of their ovulatory cycle.
Okay, someone needs to tell me what study is he talking. I didn't know that one. This is great, dude.
Cycle, and all you do is widen the jaw or narrow the jaw of the men, that the women at the peak of their ovulation.
Yeah, no, that's why I would be, and using this as Jordan Peterson's own argument, like I would be one of the 20% under the Pareto principle that has sex with 80% of the viable women. Sorry to use such fucking insult terminology in the sexual marketplace because of how feminine my features are. Like, or maybe there's a cycle when certain features throughout time get commoditized, as everything is, and they come back into action. And this is greatly different in accordance to whatever fucking society that you're talking about. No evidence that women use oral contraceptives have weaker preferences for masculine characteristics in men's faces. All right, well, owned. I'm not going to read this whole thing. Like, this is such a fucking idiotic argument that you have to be truly a moron. It's not his fault that the incels are following him. It's absolutely his fault that the incels are following him. He's just fucking baking incel theory. He is theorizing endlessly and trying to build an intellectual justification around literal incel shit.
Ovulation, where they're maximally fertile, like the wide-jawed men better, but when they're infertile, they like the narrow-jawed men better, and wider-jawed men have higher levels of testosterone, and the pill mimics infertility. And so, you know, we don't know what these radical biological hormonal transformations have done to the relationship between men and women. And you know, women too are trying to experiment with their new mode of being. It's like, well, now they're not destined at an early age to transform themselves into mothers.
How is that a fucking... Oh, dude, come on, dude. Do you not see the other side of what he's saying? Like, he's saying that, like, they should be destined to become mothers at an early age. That's, like, your position as a woman. And then he wonders why, like, 95% of his audience is male. I can't believe there was someone in my chat who just said, like, oh, I'm female and I like Jordan Peterson. Like, holy shit, dude. No, Hassan, he's right. When I took birth control, they showed me a picture of Jordan Peterson and I got more and more angry as I approached ovulation.
to transform themselves into mothers, or to allow themselves to be transformed by nature into mothers, even though it's possible that they might be much happier if that happened. I'm not saying that that's necessarily the case, but there is good evidence that women's general level of unhappiness has increased since the early 1960s. What has been the consequence of that? Well, the first consequence was wild sexual experimentation. And why not? What would you expect? It's like all of a sudden reproduction's under control. Does that mean that women can be as promiscuous as men? Well, maybe that's what it means. We don't know.
I feel like you are not making your usual good arguments tonight. Maybe because you already have a worldview that fucking corresponds to Jordan's so aggressively that a couple other morons saying, oh, it's out of context, is enough for you to keep living in that worldview where you think, oh my God, yeah, maybe it's actually correct. Maybe Jordan Peterson is correct. After all, I don't want to fucking completely rewrite everything else that I have heard and everything else that I believe. You're not engaging with his arguments. You're not attacking the most extreme version of them. You're attacking the extreme version of them that he's not even making. I am absolutely engaging with his arguments. The reason why you feel that way is because you are finally watching someone dissect his arguments, and you probably got to his arguments before you got here, and therefore, because it also corresponds to your worldview, you want to believe that his arguments are actually sound. That's the difference. Here's what Jordan Peterson does, and he does this very well, and Sam Harris does this very well as well. He uses academic language, the language of neutrality, and he very often engages in what is known as Mott and Bailey. What he does is he will make a lot of descriptive arguments. Oftentimes, a lot of those premises are false, as I've demonstrated already, like backed by faulty data, completely incomplete data, or just made up on the spot, like the adoption for LGBT parents thing, for example. He won't actually give you a normative position because he's too much of a coward to give you a normative position. That way, he can always go back and be like, well, that's not what I was saying. I never said that. It's impossible to pin him on a position because he's constantly just telling you, well, you know, men are this way, women are this way, according to this empirical evidence that I have right here that I'm totally and completely misrepresenting, and we don't know what to do with that.
Does that mean that women can be as promiscuous as men? Well, maybe that's what it means. We don't know.
That's it. That's the secret. That's literally how he fucking does this. So all of you fucking simps are basically finding the evidence that you needed to justify your worldview instead of challenging it, because Jordan Peterson is never going to challenge your worldview if you are like somewhat conservative. And he gives you the arguments that you want. That's why people like Ben Shapiro. That's why people like debate lords in general. In a way, that's why people like me too. There is no difference with what Jordan Peterson does than what Tim Pool does. What Tim Pool does all the time is call himself a centrist or even a liberal, and he never, ever, for some weird reason, ends up criticizing the right all that much, but always criticizes the left with the most reactionary point of view. That's precisely what Jordan Peterson does as well. I'm a centrist. I'm a liberal. I'm a liberal myself. But also, the left is going too far. And if you have a center-right opinion, and a lot of people do have a center-right opinion, unfortunately, especially when it comes to social issues, you are going to feel comfortable in his bosom when he tells you, like, the world that you see is not wrong. I'm here to tell you, with a fatherly figure, that the world that you see is not wrong. It's not incorrect. All these other people that are telling you you're wrong, they're wrong. They're at fault.
I don't know. It seems to me that pornography demeans the participants as well as the viewers. There's something second-rate and furtive about it, and I think that everybody who engages in it knows that. It's a substitute for the real adventure of life, and I do think that it leads to a certain kind of perhaps contempt. It leads to contempt, I would say, and that can't be a good thing. I mean, I don't ever think. And you guys can ask yourself this question. I mean, have you ever met anybody who finished masturbating and then was proud about it and who stood up straighter because of it? And
yeah. Me, motherfucker. Me.
Who felt that they'd really conquered life as a consequence? I mean, I just don't believe that that's the general post-masturbation.
Dude, I'm sorry, this is like freak shit, dude. This is like what a psychopathic, self-whipping priest would tell you not to do. Like, how is this any different than what you hear from some zealot? He's using the cloak of liberalism to make it seem like what he's saying actually makes sense when it is just completely psychotic. Yeah, here, this is a great fucking meme, but it's like he's got all these cool new ideas. It's just he's a fucking Christian conservative, and that's what hurts my fifis the most, is that when I have an audience full of progressive people coming to me and saying like, no, this is basically Christian conservatism reinvented through the framework, ironically in a kind of postmodernist way, being resold back to you, repackaged, resold back to you, where like everyone would be happier if we had more traditional beings. If we were more traditional in the way that we survive, when in fact it's because you feel shitty every day for so many different reasons. But the anxieties that you feel under modernity are not going to be solved by oppressing others and like going back to the traditional form. That's psychotic. I think it's horrific, as a matter of fact, to basically say women are unhappy because they have more freedom. Men are unhappy because women have more freedom. What is the solution? Well, I don't know. I don't know what the solution is. But he knows what the fucking solution is. In his mind, he's too much of a fucking coward to say it. And in some circumstances, he does say it. Basically, the argument that, like, the only way to fix the problems that we experience on a daily basis is by rejecting modernity and embracing tradition. That's it. And that's at the heart of fucking social conservatism. Like, that's literally what it is. And all he has done is try to justify it in these very different ways without ever like fully telling you what the solutions are, leading you to come to that conclusion. And anyone who says that this is wrong is crazy. I hope this is a better way for you to comprehend why Jordan Peterson is a doo-doo butt. That's also why there's so many Muslims that love him too. See, a couple years ago, when I first saw his videos as someone coming from a somewhat conservative Muslim community, I got quite hypnotized at first until I gradually discovered how idiot he is and how much of an idiot I was for liking him, but he also helped me progress a lot of my thoughts by disagreeing with him. I never hear people crying about missing context when you're watching Trump, but all of a sudden when someone's sympathetic to Trump's worldview is being dissected, all these people start crying. Well, that's the thing. That's the beauty of what Jordan Peterson has done. That's his grift, is that he has made himself seem apolitical while being extremely political. And the reason why some of your Muslim friends, as insert saying here, watch him but don't watch him but literally make the same modernity argument, is because that's the hilarity. Jordan Peterson is recycling social conservatism. That's it. That's all he's doing. Proof that when you conveniently package anti-LGBTQ and anti-women rhetoric between fake academic takes, you can convince a majority. Yeah, even people who otherwise would never fancy themselves to be conservative. I also don't even think that it's necessarily a bad thing that, like, I don't think sexual liberation has, like, harmed women. You can only have that take if you don't think about women at all in the equation. You see what I'm saying? It's like the conversation that we have, for example, about our founding fathers, which is going to frustrate some people, so get ready for it, especially some white people. The conversation that we have about our founding fathers always is like, well, they had robust debate over whether black people were human beings or not. Like, they didn't know, which is false, and it's peppered with a bunch of falsehoods, and it's ahistorical. But that conversation implies that like black people weren't human to begin with, that we are not even taking into consideration how black people felt about their subjugation, how black people felt about slavery. We're talking only about the white people having a conversation about black people being enslaved. You understand? That's the incredibly frustrating part about this argument, is that like when we are having a conversation about sexual liberation of women amongst just us bros and us dudes, right? We're literally just avoiding the female perspective in its entirety. Like they do not know what's best for them. We know what's best for them. They might have fought for sexual liberation, but ultimately that's leading to really damaging consequences that they themselves do not recognize. We know better than they do. And that's the problem. Is there a grifter on the right that you think is the worst out of all of them? I mean, they come and go. There's like seasons for all of them. And I think Jordan Peterson for a while was one of the worst. Like one of the worst of the worst. So much so that he hasn't even been around for a while, and yet he still has this kind of impact. We're moving on from the Jordan Peterson saga. I think this was helpful. I'm sure that there's some people here that have, at the very least, changed their perspective on certain issues, or at least like Jordan Peterson, the Jordan Peterson grift a little bit. I would love to have a conversation with Jordan Peterson, by the way. Now at least I have a little bit more clout that like that's a reasonable thing to ask for. I don't think he would do it, but I would absolutely love to have that conversation. So don't think that I am, avoiding that. Just playing devil's advocate, saying only people you align with are out of context and people you disagree with are in context and similar length clips is not effective to change minds. Please provide an example on the right of something out of context to provide more rounded worldview. Fuck you, dude. And finish DS3. Good one.